Now to music and culture. It's been 50 years since Bob Dylan rocked the stage at the Newport Folk Festival with an electric band. It garnered boos, some cheers from the crowd, and criticism from the folk music scene as Dylan left behind his acoustic roots. Today, I talked with Elijah Wald, author of Dylan Goes Electric, and asked him why that night is so important.
Well, what made news was that Dylan, for the first time, appeared live on stage with electric instruments, but more than that, that a lot of people at the Newport Folk Festival, where he was worshipped, booed him for it.
I would assume that to a younger crowd, that doesn't sound like much of a big deal. Explain why.
You know, really the answer to why is because it was Bob Dylan, and because Newport was supposed to be the place for traditional music, for folk music, and Dylan had been the guy who joined arms with everyone and sang Blowing in the Wind.
The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind.
And now he was shouting, how does it feel to be on your own?
He gets on stage and he starts to play.
With a very loud band. No one had ever heard anything that loud in their lives. There'd never been a rock festival. And also, he had always been perky and chatty and friendly, and he was now the Dylan we've seen ever since, the guy who walks on frowning, never says a word, turns his back on the audience, and just sings his song.
And the reaction from the crowd?
Some people were cheering, some people had just come to hear Dylan, but a lot of people felt like this was inappropriate, like he was being aggressive, or just like it sounded terrible.
Including the godfather of this folk festival, which was Pete Seeger.
Pete Seeger was very upset.
Why?
Because he felt like this was a festival that was supposed to bring people together and that Dylan was trying to push people away.
Really? That sounds so interesting. I mean, this would be a new form of folk music. Why wouldn't Pete Seeger, sort of the guy of openness and seeming flexibility, be open to this?
Oh, that one's easy. Because Pete Seeger's whole idea was, I walk out on stage with my banjo or my guitar, and I do something that you then can go home and do with your friends, and it's no different. You doing it with your friends and you singing here with me, whereas Dylan was doing something that what you go home with your friends and do is listen to Dylan records.
And that sounds like a very forceful father figure saying, this is what you do.
Dylan, in fact, said, what Pete Seeger does is sort of like a tribal shaman or medicine man bringing people together. What rock stars do is just live out people's fantasies.
He played his allotted time, and he goes off stage.
He actually played more than his allotted time. But he goes out off stage. It's been only 3 songs, and a lot of people were there not for the Newport Folk Festival. A lot of people were just there for Dylan. They didn't care about the Newport Folk Festival, and that's when they went nuts.
So Peter Yarrow gets on stage and starts calling for Bob Dylan to come back.
Right. And saying he'll come back, he'll bring his acoustic guitar, which he did. He came back on, he sang, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue.
But it sounds like there was a lot of controversy during that period. It was only a couple of minutes during the time when Peter Yarrow, when he goes off stage, Peter Yarrow starts calling him back. And what, there's an argument that's going on backstage over this?
Backstage, there are people saying, Bob, you got to go back out there. He's saying, they don't want me out there.
What happened to him that night, to Bob Dylan? Why did he change?
I think that he wanted to stop being the voice of the generation. I think he wanted to be able to be an artist, to be himself, and not to have this whole weight of responsibility.
How does this moment in music history fit in to the sort of continuum, folk, rock, modern music?
Folk music had been music for intelligent college kids, and rock music was still thought of as essentially music for dumb, screaming teenagers who like to dance. And this moment is sort of the moment where a lot of people felt Dylan was selling out, but then he got booed, and he kept doing it, and he kept touring as he kept getting booed, and everybody went, wait a minute, he isn't selling out, he's serious, this is art. And the funny thing is, the story is he split with the folk world, but the reality is the folk world followed him, and rock and roll has been the music of intelligent college students ever since.
It's a great book. Elijah Wald, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me.
And his book, Dylan Goes Electric, is on sale now. That's our broadcast. Thanks for watching. I'm John Siegenthaler. See you tomorrow night. The news continues with Antonio Mora.